Normally, we would start our story with the victim's background, where she was born, who she was as a person, and what she meant to others in her life. But sadly, in this case, we don't even know her name, as Indian law does not permit the usage of a victim's actual name in high profile cases, such as the one we're about to share with you. She became known by the names Disha and Hyderabad Nirbhaya by both police officials and media outlets. Since this is all we have to go by, we'll be referring to her as Disha for the remainder of the episode. What we do know about Disha is that she was born in 1994. She was known to have had a great love for animals, so she pursued a degree at a veterinary college in the district of Nagar, which is located to the north of Shamshabad. After graduating, she began working as a veterinary assistant surgeon at a state-run hospital located at Kolar Village, located about 35 kilometers west of Hyderabad.
On November 27, 2019, at around 6:15 p.m., Disha parked her scooter near the Tandupalli toll plaza and took a taxi to a dermatologist appointment in Hyderabad. 4 men who had been drinking whiskey had spotted her. Unbeknownst to Disha, while she was away at her appointment, the 4 men, which consisted of 2 truck drivers and 2 cleaners, deflated one of her tires. This wasn't the first time that the men had spotted Disha at the toll plaza. It was part of her regular routine to take a taxi into the city. But tonight, they decided to make her their victim. At 9:15 p.m., Disha returned to find that her scooter had a flat tire. As she was phoning her sister for help, the 4 men, who were later identified as Mohammed Arif, Chinta Kunta Chena Kishavulu, Jalo Shiva, and Jalo Naveen, offered her aid and subsequently ambushed her. As Disha screams for help, the men covered her mouth and forced her into the bushes near the toll gate where her phone was powered off. They poured whiskey into her mouth in a failed attempt to silence her. They then stripped her of all of her clothing and took turns essaying her until she began to bleed and fell into unconsciousness. When Disha began to stir, the men dragged her into their parked truck, where they proceeded to smother her to death. Some sources have indicated that she had been strangled. At 2:30 a.m., the men wrapped her in a blanket and callously loaded her body into the back of their truck. They then drove 27 kilometers to a remote stretch of the Hyderabad-Bangalore highway, where she was discarded like trash beneath an underpass. To add insult to injury, the men covered Disha's body in diesel fuel and petrol and lit her ablaze. Her charred remains were not discovered until the following day. According to reports, 70% of her body had been burnt, and her scooter had been dumped approximately 10 kilometers from the crime scene. In addition, police located Disha's clothing, handbag, and other belongings, as well as spent liquor bottles near the Tandupalli toll plaza.
Thanks to evidence discovered on Disha's cell phone, as well as CCTV cameras that captured their crimes, the 4 men were swiftly apprehended and taken into custody at the Shirlapalli Central Jail for a total of 7 days. Chief Minister Reddy ordered that the men be fast-tracked through the court system to pay for their alleged crimes. However, this is where things take an unexpected twist. Sometime between 3 and 6:30 a.m. on December 6, 2019, all 4 suspects were killed by police at the crime scene. According to the police, the men were taken back to the National Highway 44 underpass to reconstruct the scene. It was then, allegedly, that 2 of the suspects snatched the officers' service weapons and attacked them. The suspects' bodies were autopsied twice before they were released to their families. The first autopsy took place on the day of the shooting at a government hospital in Mahbubnagar, while the second took place on December 21st, 2019 at the Gandhi Medical College and Hospital. Due to the high-profile nature of this case, this time the post-mortem exam was conducted by a team of forensic experts from All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. Even though hundreds of thousands of Indians celebrated the men's deaths, others accused the police of playing the role of judge, jury, and executioner. This is more commonly known in legal circles as extrajudicial killings. Now, these are fairly commonplace in India, where they are referred to as police encounters or simply encounters. This is a term widely used throughout South Asia. These encounters are sometimes carried out by death squads. Oftentimes, the encounter follows the exact same rubric that we've seen in Disha's case. A suspect allegedly snatches a weapon from an officer, and a shootout ensues. Between March of 2017 to March of 2019, 73 suspects were killed in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh in what were later called police encounters.
In the aftermath of the shootings, the families of the accused sought financial assistance and demanded punishment for the 10 officers involved in the alleged shootout. The families believed that their sons were killed in what they described as a fake encounter. In 2022, an inquiry commission that was appointed by the Indian Supreme Court found that the 4 men were shot with a deliberate intention of causing their deaths. The case was then transferred to the Telangana High Court for further review. As of the date of this recording in 2025, the matter has still not been resolved.
4 gang rape and murder accused who were killed in a police encounter in Telangana's Hyderabad were deliberately fired upon with an intent to cause their death, is what a Supreme Court appointed commission has said today. The commission recommends that 10 policemen be tried for the murder. So, Arvind, glaring lapses as far as this investigation is concerned.
Yeah, Divya, in one of the most infamous encounter or the incident that we saw in 2019, wherein 4 accused or suspects who were supposedly involved in the alleged gang and murder of a girl in Telangana were shot dead in an encounter, and the police had then told, the Hyderabad police had then told that those 4 accused, they snatched the weapons of the policeman, and then they were intending to attack the policeman, and as an act of self-defense, the policeman opened fire, in which all these 4 suspects, they died. That was the story that was given by the Hyderabad police, but that was challenged before various courts, and the matter also, appeal was also filed in Supreme Court. The commission has made it very clear that this particular story of the Hyderabad police, that is all those 4 suspects, they snatched the weapons of the police, and then they were intending to attack the policeman, is a concocted story. And also, very importantly, the commission has also said that out of the 4 people who are killed in that particular encounter, at least 3 of them were minors. In fact, the commission has also asked all those 10 police officers who involved in this particular encounter to be charged with murder.
According to Jalo Shiva's father, Rajappa, we have told the commission that they were killed in a fake encounter. We have been saying it was a fake encounter. Muhammad Arif's father, Hussein, noted, we are saying that the policemen should be punished. Justice has to be rendered. Chinta Kunta Chena Keshavulu's mother added, we are poor people. We don't have any source of income because our sons, who were the breadwinners, were killed. We have not received any assistance from the state government, and hence we want some financial help. Now, in my opinion, one of the most disheartening things that occurred in the aftermath of Disha's murder was the fact that the death of her attackers got bigger headlines. While researching her case, there was very little information about Disha's story, while there were dozens of articles about the aftermath. It's also alleged that 3 of the 4 suspects were minors, although there are varying accounts as to whether or not this is true. Either way, this poor young woman who had her whole life ahead of her got overshadowed by 4 pieces of trash who, in my opinion, got what they deserved. I'm not alone in how I feel about this. Disha's father told reporters that his daughter's soul will finally attain peace. He added, and I quote, I want to congratulate the government of Telangana, the police, and the people who have been supporting me. Disha's sister told reporters, the accused have been encountered, and I feel very happy. She felt that the incident could serve as a deterrence for others who might commit such heinous acts.
Disha's senseless essay and murder struck a chord across India, much like the Jyoti Singh case did. If you've not watched our coverage of her story, we will be sure to link the episode in the description and pin comment for you, but we will also give you a quick recap. Jyoti Singh was born into a lower middle-class family on May 10th, 1990 in Delhi, India. She was the eldest of 3 children and the only daughter of parents Asha Devi and Badranath Singh. The pair has risked it all to give their children a shot at a better life, selling their plot of farmland in order to pay for their kids to go to school. In turn, the family moved to a slum in southwest Delhi. On December 16, 2012, Jyoti and her friend Avindra Pandey went to see the movie The Life of Pi at the PVR cinema located within the Select City Walk shopping center. After an auto rickshaw driver refused to bring the pair back to Jyoti's house, they were dropped off at the Manurka bus stop, hoping to find another way home, but Sadly, that would not happen. At 9:30 p.m., Jyoti and Avindra boarded a small white Yadav Travels bus after being told by a young passenger that the vehicle was headed towards the Dwarka neighborhood. They paid 10 rupees apiece and joined the 6 other men on board, which included the driver. The men were described as working-class migrants, and they all were already drunk. The men attacked Avindra first. According to reports, he was gagged and beaten, subsequently being knocked unconscious with a rusted L-shaped rod used as a wheel jack handle. Avindra later recalled that during the melee, he pounded on the windows of the van in an attempt to alert passing motorists to the attack that was taking place.
With Avindra incapacitated, the men set their sights on 22-year-old Jyoti. The young woman was dragged by her hair to the back of the bus and beaten with the same rod that had been used to attack her friend. As the bus driver continued driving on into the night, the men took turns of violently essaying Jyoti. At one point, she fought back, biting her attackers. In response, the men inserted the L-shaped rod inside of Jyoti, perforating her uterus and bowels, which caused her intestines to spill outside of her body. According to reports, one of the attackers later testified that he saw a rope-like object being pulled out of Jyoti's body by another one of the men. They were quite literally disemboweling her with their bare hands. The gruesome attack went on for the better part of an hour before both Jyoti and Avindra were thrown from the bus, half-dressed, to die on the side of the road. The men later cleaned the bus in an attempt to destroy the evidence of their crime. Barely conscious and losing hope, Avindra attempted to flag down a passing motorist, but no one would stop for them. But at around 11 p.m., a highway patrol van located the pair and contacted the Delhi police. They were rushed to the Safjardung Hospital in New Delhi, where Jyoti was placed on a ventilator. It was discovered that she only had 5% of her intestines left in her body, and her whole body was littered with bruises and bite marks from her attackers. What Jyoti did next earned her the moniker Nirbhaya, meaning fearless. Conscious, she scribbled a note on a piece of paper and handed it to her doctors. It said, "I want to survive." Jyoti clung desperately to life so that she could tell the tale of what happened to her. Now, according to The Guardian, while she lay in her hospital bed, she told the police, "The conductor closed the doors of the bus. He closed the lights of the bus and came towards my friend and started abusing and beating him. They held his hands and held me and took me to the back of the bus. They tore my clothes and raped me in turns. They hit me with an iron rod and bit me on my entire body with their teeth. They took all belongings, my mobile phone, purse, credit card, debit card, watches, etc. 6 people raped me in turns for nearly 1 hour in a moving bus. The driver of the bus kept changing so that he could also rape me." Jyoti had undergone 5 surgeries to remove what was left of her damaged intestines, but her body couldn't withstand the internal bleeding and sepsis. While on a flight from Delhi to Singapore to receive care at Mount Elizabeth Hospital, which specializes in multi-organ transplant, Jyoti went into cardiac arrest and never regained consciousness. The 22-year-old passed away from her injuries on December 26, 2012.
You would think that after what happened with Jyoti Singh, things would have changed in South Asia, but that's clearly not the case. The years that followed, not only was Disha assaulted and murdered, but there have been many other cases that have not been widely reported. Most of these cases have far less information than what we have for Disha's. They're quite literally barely a blurb on a news site. Now, let's be clear here. Everything we're about to touch upon is not intended to portray India as this lawless place where murderers run wild. I know I don't look it, but I have family members who were born there decades ago and live there. They didn't have negative things to say about India, but I've never been there myself, and I would rather leave that kind of commentary for people who have gone there and experienced it for themselves. The purpose of us touching upon the following cases is purely to highlight the fact that India appears to have difficulty publicly documenting some of their more heinous crimes. You can be the one to speculate why that is if you want to, but if you're from India or South Asia, I'd love to hear from you in the comments about your experiences living there. If it were up to us, we would do a video on each one of these victims, but unfortunately, the following is all we were able to dig up. In the northern state of Rajasthan, a 6-year-old girl was essayed and strangled to death with her own belt. The accused was a drunken 38-year-old man who lured the little girl out of her school like a literal stranger with candy. According to Vipin Sharma, who is a senior official with the Rajasthan police, the man killed the girl so that way she couldn't identify him. In the southern state of Kerala, located west of Sri Lanka, a 40-year-old woman was essayed and killed with a gardening tool. The police later apprehended a 28-year-old man for the crime. Remember, there is no names available for any of these. Just 2 days prior to that attack, 12 men attacked a 25-year-old woman in the city of Ranchi. Her alleged crime was that she was sitting with a male friend, much like in Jyoti Singh's case. The gang of men first incapacitated her male companion before dragging the young woman away and taking turns assaulting her. Most recently, in March of 2024, 2 Spanish and Brazilian travel bloggers were attacked while documenting their travels through India and into Nepal. The attack took place in the Jharkhand state. In a now deleted Instagram video, the victims told their more than 200,000 followers, and I quote, "Something happened to us that we wouldn't wish on anyone. We were assaulted in the tent. We were beaten. They put a knife to our necks, and she was raped by 7 guys." Now, as someone who enjoys traveling, this certainly hits close to home. 4 of the suspects were apprehended, but it's unclear if the other 3 were ever brought to justice. We're going to keep an eye out for updates on that case if they become available, as it's drawn worldwide media attention from both the BBC and Al Jazeera. Ranjana Kumari, who is the director for the Center for Social Research, sat down with CNN for an interview about the systemic issue of violence against women in India. She told reporters, and I quote, "It is in the mind of society and men and boys to brutalize women. They get a power kick. If a law and order and enforcement is strong, then the law starts acting as a deterrent. The politicians make obnoxious statements. They help in creating the culture. The law is not acting as a deterrent." She added that if India were to start hanging people for rape, authorities would need to set up gallows the length and breadth of the vast nation of more than 1.3 billion people. According to reports, SA is the 4th most common crime against women in India. According to 2021 figures from the National Crime Records Bureau, 31,677 cases of SA were reported across the country. That is roughly 87 women attacked on a daily basis. 87. However, that figure is likely much higher due to the stigma attached to the crime. Due to perceived shame and dishonor to one's family, the victim of the crime could be murdered in what's known as an honor killing by her own family. This and the likelihood of the crime falling on deaf ears has led to many attacks not being reported. A prime example of this are the 706 SA cases that were reported in Delhi alone in 2012. Out of those 706 cases, only 1 case saw a successful conviction, and that was of Jyoti Singh.
However, women and girls in South Asia are not the only victims of these heinous crimes. While researching more up-to-date crime statistics, I unfortunately came across something I never thought I'd ever see in my research. According to reports from multiple news sources, including Vice, The Hindu, and India Today, among others, 4 men were arrested in April of 2022 for the alleged gang rape of an endangered Bengal monitor lizard. Yes, you heard that correctly. I cannot make any of this up, nor would I want to. The incident took place on March 29, 2022 at the Sayadri Tiger Reserve. Forest rangers thought that they were simply investigating a poaching incident after the 4 men were spotted on cameras meant to track tigers. The men, who were armed with a rifle, were arrested for trespassing in the reserve's Chandoli National Park. This is one of India's most protected pieces of forest. The men, who were later identified as Sandeep Pawar, Mangesh Khemtekar, Akshay Khemtekar, and Ramesh Gag, were taken into custody and charged under India's Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. However, while in police custody, the police discovered something totally unexpected after the men started to roll on one another. Police found both pictures and video of the men taking turns essaying the endangered lizard before killing it and eating it. Forest Officer Vishal Mali shared with Vice News, and I quote, "I have never seen a crime like this before. The men are in their 20s and 30s, and they appear to have done it for fun. There was no religious or black magic agenda." He later added, "Not only is this cruel, but there is a risk of zoonotic diseases from this kind of case. There are concerns of men carrying STDs and other infections from their act." Even though their crime could land them with a 7-year sentence, the men were subsequently bailed out, and I've been unable to find out any more information as to where this case stands in 2025. But based on how the justice system treats women and girls in South Asia, I highly doubt anything will come of the essay and killing of protected wildlife. However, this isn't the only case I found. A man essayed and killed a pregnant goat in southern India, and another 60-year-old man was caught assaulting a stray dog. There's actually been many cases of men attacking not only stray dogs, but cows as well, which are supposed to be sacred. Cats aren't even off limit. In July of 2020, a group of 7 teenage boys in Lahore, Pakistan, passed around a kitten for over a week before it died from multiple organ failure. According to a Pakistani-based NGO called JFK Animal Rescue and Shelter, the assault was so brutal that the kitten's private parts essentially became one opening. This was the 5th such case that the shelter had faced. On November 1st, 2023, a man in Dehradun, India, essayed his landlady's cat. He was thankfully arrested and the cat survived. One of the most recent cases I found was that of a man in the Uttar Pradesh region who was arrested after filming himself assaulting a cat, a king cobra, and a human infant. Now, according to reports, between 2010 and 2020, there have been an estimated 500,000 reported crimes against animals in India, which include the torture and killing of them. 82 of these cases included essay, but again, these are just cases that were reported. There are very likely many more. Again, we're not solely coming at South Asian countries for these types of crimes, but merely sharing what we found when researching statistics. In fact, this crap is more prevalent in the United States than you'd think. Between 2016 and 2022, around 317 arrests related to the essay of animals were reported in the US, which represents the highest figure since 1975. A lot of these crimes took place in rural areas and were inflicted upon domestic animals, but wildlife also fell victim as well. As of the date of this recording in 2025, the state of West Virginia still does not have laws protecting animals from these types of crimes. As not only a woman, but a woman who has a fierce love for animals, I can't help but feel totally powerless when I hear things like this. In close, if you're listening in South Asia, I ask this of you. What can we as a global community do to help? Because this is terrible. Something needs to be done to stop the suffering. We cannot have any more Jyotis or Dishas.